The NFL season is officially in the books, which means we are now looking towards the draft. So in today's video, I will be giving you guys an updated first round mock draft with a handful of trades. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're new and going to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So as you guys can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator. We are going to begin this off with the Las Vegas Raiders. This is the automatic pick. You can see 1.1 average draft projection. I believe that's what it is. Fernando Mendoza will be the #1 pick. If it's anybody not named Fernando, I don't know what to tell you. That would be the biggest shock of my life. Moving to #2, I think this pick is also kind of feeling like a bit of an early lock right now. It definitely feels as if Arvell Reese is the #1 favorite for this pick. It's between Bain, Bailey, and Reese. I have heard a little bit of some hype for Sonny Styles. I'm not there with that one yet. I do think Reese is the better player than Sonny Styles. I love his versatility to play. I'm sorry if you guys can hear the freaking dog squeaking. Jesus, man, Jesus. But anyways, Arvell Reese can play off-ball linebacker. He can play off the edge. I just think he's just an all-around stud, always around the football, always making plays. I think he'd be great in whatever role in that Aaron Glenn defense, if Aaron Glenn's there for the long haul. Arizona at #3, and look, I think that at this stage in the draft, sure, you could go David Bailey and add more pass rushers, or Ruben Baines more specifically to pair with Sweat, but I think with where this team needs to go, with the fact they've just brought in an offensive-minded head coach, he's going to want to make sure that offensive line is set in stone. I think both Fano and Maui Noah are very close in my personal rankings. I have Fano a little bit ahead of Maui, just because I think Fano is a better pure tackle. But in this situation, given the fact the Cardinals have needs kind of scattered throughout the offensive line, I'm going to take Francis here and kind of see if he can play right tackle for us. If not, we'll just play him at guard and feel really good about that pick. Before we got the Tennessee Titans, and I think so in terms of trades, we'll get to a few trades here in a second. I got a couple of fun ones for you guys, kind of loaded in the back of my mind. But I think in these handful of first picks, I don't think you're going to see a ton of movement. And maybe the Jets could trade down to accumulate even more assets, but I don't know. I don't think there's gonna be a ton of movement within like the top 5. I do think from like 7 to 17, that's where you're gonna see a couple big time trades. So we'll get to that here in a second. 4 for the Titans, though. I think that this team is going to want to try and reset the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of things. You have the interior set up. I think let's make what can become a strength really quickly. Let's fasten that up a little bit by taking Ruben Bain. The idea of having Ruben Bain on one side, Jihad Ward, Arden Key, the UCLA guy you took last year, Ladejo, who obviously they have a lot of hope for that he can develop. He's a different play style anyways from Bain. I just love the idea of getting bigger, stronger with those big boys up the middle. I think Robert Saleh would have a field day with that defensive line. Let's then run in Ruben Bain here and back-to-back Miami Hurricanes off the board. For 5, we have the New York Giants. I commonly see the Giants taking a receiver in this spot, and I've done it in my fair share of mock drafts, and I will probably do more mock drafts with the Giants taking a wide receiver, but I want to switch it up a little bit here. I've seen some Giants fans not too happy about the idea of taking a wide receiver, which makes sense because if you do draft a receiver, he's just going to be your wide receiver too, and this team has some other big-time needs, such as offensive lineman and corner, and when you look at the board here, you could take Spencer Fano and just plug and play, start him at right tackle, but I think I'm going to do a little bit something different here and take Mansour Delane. Obviously, the Deontay Banks pick was a complete catastrophe. I think what Mansour Delane's skill set is, and the way that he's going to fit into what Harbaugh wants to do defensively, I think Mansour Delane just fits that perfectly. He can be their true lockdown CB1, and they do have other talented guys defensively. So just adding that plug, I don't want to say plug and play, but adding this guy that can kind of be your insto facto #1 corner just kind of makes a lot of sense to me. I think these corners are going to go a little higher than what some people think. All right, we're back up at #6 here, and with all 3 receivers still on the board and with a really deep receiver class, I think the Browns would be wise to wait till the 24 or some of their picks in day 3/day 2 to invest in the receiving core. Plus, you have Judy, plus you have Isaiah Bond, you have a good tight end. I think receiver's a massive need, but I'm going to prioritize offensive lineman here, and I'm going to take Spencer Fano. Right now, he's going to be a right tackle of the future. We'll see what happens with Jack Conklin. We'll see what happens with DeJuan Jones. This team would be wise, in my opinion, to double and even potentially triple down on offensive linemen in this year's draft class. So let's take Spencer Fano here to kind of quicken that process up here. But we're up at #7, and this is where our first trade is going to come in. To me, the Commanders are a prime trade down spot because if you look at their assets here, they have only 5 picks in this year's draft class, which includes not a second-round pick and I believe not a round 4 pick. So a big time need for them to trade down. The question will be, who would want to trade up to #7? And I'll go ahead and list off a few teams that I think would be interested in moving up a few spots. I think the Bengals would be the first team that would at least field a call with the Commanders because maybe they want to trade up for, I don't know, the top defensive player like Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs or David Bailey, which could be awesome right here. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Miami also makes sense too because they have a bit of a receiver issue because you have Jalen Waddle, but I would love to see them have like a Carnell Tate on that side. I think Dallas maybe, but Dallas doesn't have a day 2 pick, so I don't think they would be in the conversation. And I think really Washington would want to stay within the top 15. So I think the next team that would at least feel to call would be the Los Angeles Rams, maybe if they want to take Jermod McCoy. But for this trade specifically, I'm going to do the Miami Dolphins. And the reason why I'm going to do the Miami Dolphins is they actually have a number of day 2 picks that kind of fits exactly what I'm looking here for. So we're going to obviously do a pick swap 7 and 11. And in terms of the actual trade, my guess is that it'll probably be one of these third round picks. My assumption is it will be this 75 pick. It could be 87 or 90. I definitely think that's possible. So just assume it's one of these third round picks. But the Miami Dolphins are going to be moving up 4 spots. They already have a number of picks here. I think this could make a little bit of some sense for them to do. And then for the Commanders side of things, you pick up an extra round 3 pick, which is very valuable. Let's force this trade right on in. The Dolphins move up to number 7. And, you know, I talked a bit earlier about the idea of Carnell Tate. I do think there's some other ideas on the board here, such as maybe adding a David Bailey to that edge rushing room. But you have Chop Robinson, who already does a couple similar things to Bailey. Very much DPR focused guys. Caleb Downs next to Minka Fitzpatrick would be great, but safety is not a premium position, and the safety class this year is pretty sweet. So I think you could wait on that one, maybe with one of your third round picks. Other than that, I mean, Sonny Styles would be sweet. I think your linebackers are fine, though. Jermod McCoy makes a ton of sense here, but I'm going to go with Carnell Tate. I love the idea of pairing the 6'3", 195, big playmaker down the field, reliable, always on the field, always making plays. Pair that up with Jalen Waddle. I think that's a duo that could be really good for either Malik Willis, Quinn Ewers, or whoever might be out there. So let's go with Carnell Tate there to be our, maybe, I guess, potential wide receiver 1, with Jalen Waddle being the wide receiver 2. All right, the Saints are back up at number 8. I would have considered Carnell Tate here with the pick, but with the way the board fell, I think I'm leaning David Bailey here. The idea of pairing a Bailey play style, very much this pass rush oriented guy, a dude that has a deep bag of moves, and I think he's a decent run defender that has a upside to be a 3-down guy. You pair that up with Chase Young, who's having a really good kind of resurgence over there in New Orleans. I love that kind of duo right there. I know New Orleans has typically gone for bigger, more Keldrick Falk-sized edge rushers, but I mean, it's a mock draft. We're not going to look too far into that one. We'll see how the interview process works out. Maybe I'd consider Sonny Styles here. Maybe Jeremiah Love would be in consideration, but I like the idea of David Bailey here. Let's take David Bailey, who to me is a really good pass rusher. All right, the Chiefs are up at 9, and you know what? I think a call is coming. I think the Chiefs would be in a situation where they don't have a ton of picks in this year's class, only 6 picks. Maybe they would like to pick up a bit more ammunition in this class and move down a couple spots. Again, some similar talking points here. I think a team that wants this pick is going to try and jump the Cowboys, Commanders, and Bengals. All 3 of these teams, more so the Commanders and the Cowboys, but I guess Bengals a little bit, need secondary help, specifically safety, cornerback, even linebacker. So a team here that's going to want to jump these teams would want probably one of Downs, Jermod McCoy, or Sonny Styles. We're going to make the assumption Jermod is 100% healthy, by the way, for this mock draft. And I think a prime team to make that trade would be the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams already have a second first-round pick down the board, so they could be okay spending a little bit here to move up to ensure they get their guy and not end up having to wait behind the Dallas Cowboys and the Commanders, who could potentially take one of their 2 favorite players in this class. Let's do a trade here with the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, pick swap. I don't think it would cost them a ton. My assumption is it would cost them, I think, 93 and maybe like 209, something along those lines. I feel like that's a little rich. Maybe 232. I don't know, something along these lines. The actual capital doesn't really matter too much. Really, the only thing that matters here is that we are getting the pick swap, and Chiefs are picking up extra ammunition. They get an additional, I believe that's a back of round 3 pick, and I would assume that's a round 6 or round 7 pick too. So we're gonna run this one in. The Rams are gonna move up ahead of some of these more defensive needy teams, and they're gonna be in a spot here to take their pick of the litter. I think they're good at safety, but I think corner is a massive need. Again, if Jermod McCoy is 100% healthy, which we're going to make the assumption he is, I think he would be the CB1 of this draft class, even ahead of Mansour Delane, who I love Delane, but Delane, hit this year was really, really good. I think Jermod McCoy 2024 season was just spectacular, and I think had he played this year, he would have been probably a top 5 pick. You'll hear some people maybe say that Sonny Styles should be the pick here. I can definitely see it. But as Rams fans will definitely tell you, they don't draft linebackers early. So I'll listen here. I'm taking Jeremiah McCoy here for the Los Angeles Rams. All right, the Bengals are up at 10. I think they're just totally fine here with, honestly, either Bailey, McCoy, or Caleb Downs, or even Sonny Styles. But they did invest in linebacker last offseason, although they could definitely use another one. I'm going to take Caleb Downs here, though. I just feel like he is the ultimate general of a defense. And whoever takes Caleb Downs, their defense gets better literally within minutes of that pick. Like, that defense is significantly better with a Caleb Downs level player. All right, Washington is up. I'm sure they would have loved to have taken Caleb Downs, but I'm sure they're not too mad here. They need linebackers, specifically to replace Bobby Wagner. I think that's a perfect spot for Sonny Styles to step in right away, pair him up with Frankie Louvu. He would be another one of these guys, kind of like Caleb Downs, who's just sort of an instant plug-and-play starter that makes your defense significantly better. Let's go with Sonny Styles here for the Washington Commanders. All right, Dallas is up at number 12, and I think Dallas is another team that would love to trade back. Dallas does have 2 first-round picks, but they don't have a single day 2 pick. Now, they have a lot of day 3 picks, so they're good there, but I could see the Dallas Cowboys looking to trade back and maybe pick up an additional day 2 pick. Now, who would be interested in trading up, and why would they trade up? I think the biggest reason why you would trade up here is for Jeremiah Love, which is a tough one here, right? Obviously, you're trading up with Dallas to jump Kansas City. Obviously, Kansas City would be one of the favorites to take Jeremiah Love, and with the way the board fell, I think Kansas City would maybe even probably have Jeremiah Love ready to rock and roll in Kansas City. The one team that is commonly mocked for Jeremiah Love is the Minnesota Vikings. And I think the Minnesota Vikings could be aggressive this offseason to make their offense better, knowing that there's a sense of urgency that they have to make this thing work with this roster that's ready to win now. So whether it is JJ McCarthy, Malik Willis, Mac Jones, we've heard some mumbles and bumbles about Joe Burrow. So we'll see about this one. For all we know, that pick could be somebody else's. But with the way the board is falling now, I think Dallas would trade down with the Minnesota Vikings here. And, Dallas, it's a pretty substantial drop for Dallas, but I think the board here is okay for Dallas. And picking up that additional day 2 pick could be very valuable. Because Dallas is moving down several spots, I do think Dallas would get a bit of a decent pick here on day 2. I don't know if it'd be 49. That would feel a little bit rich for me, but I definitely do think that this pick right here, 18, 82, and the Cowboys for 12, I think that's a pretty fair trade. Dallas picks up a 3rd round pick, move back 6 spots. Minnesota Vikings moves up 6 spots. They already have an additional 3rd round pick by itself. So I think this trade just makes a lot of sense. Let's force this trade here. Minnesota trades up for Jeremiah Love, gives them a playmaker in the running back room, and Dallas is going to have 2 picks right here and an additional 3rd round pick. I think it's kind of a win-win for both. Our Chiefs up at 13, who I would actually say are maybe the losers so far of the draft, but they did pick up additional draft capital from their trade with the Los Angeles Rams. And honestly, the board, it's not too bad for them. There's some guys here that I really like for this team. Peter Woods, really good football player. Caleb Banks looked incredible at the Senior Bowl. He very well could be the pick here, but I'm going to consider a couple other options too. Jordan Tyson, I think, makes a ton of sense, especially if the medical history checks out. Moving down the board, TJ Parker, Kenyon Sadiq as your Kelsey replacement. Sure, I could see it. I think I'm going to do Caleb Banks here. I think Banks has such an incredible Senior Bowl, and he reminds me so much of Chris Jones, at least in terms of that disruptor, that guy that can completely get after the quarterback, somebody who's stout against the run. He just got injured this year, which is a big-time shame because he was so impressive in the limited snaps we saw him last year. But at the Senior Bowl, he looked right up to par. He looks ready to go. Learning from Chris Jones, playing next to him. Once Chris Jones eventually moves off, on from Kansas City, Caleb Banks, Mar Norman Lott, and whoever else might be there could make for a great duo. Some might say Cassius Howell, but I would take Banks over Howell. Let me just put it that way. Jordan Tyson also was definitely considered here too. I'm going to take Caleb Banks here though. 14, we got the Ravens, and with the way the board fell, I think I would just make this one the Jordan Tyson pick. Now, if Chiefs fans would have preferred Jordan Tyson, then maybe the Ravens would take Caleb Banks. I honestly think you can honestly do either pick either way. They both check out for me. Let's take Jordan Tyson here. Pair up Tyson with Zay Flowers, with Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry. I know that defensive line needs a lot of work, but with the way the board is, I don't love some of these options here. And I think Jordan Tyson, if he's 100% healthy, he's He's a top 5 player in this class for me, so I'm taking Jordan Tyson here. 15, you got the Buccaneers. This is a pass rusher or a linebacker, and with how the board is right now, I love TJ Parker, but I think Cassius Howell is a better pure pass rusher. Run defender, not so much, but I mean, we're paying this guy what we're paying for him to be just a GoDaddy, just somebody that can get after the quarterback, and that's Cassius Howell for you. All right, 16, we got the Jets here. They already took Arvell Reese. I think they would consider like a Ty Simpson here for sure. By the way, Trinidad Chambliss, I'm pretty sure he's not going to be in this class anymore, which is just unbelievable. The roller coaster we've been on with Trinidad. It's unfortunate for them, for a lot of teams, because I think Trinidad would have been a day 2 pick for sure, but he decides to go back to college. At least that's what it sounded like. Best player on the board here is Mekhi Lemon. I don't think it's particularly close. He is my current wide receiver 1, but if Tyson's healthy, he'd be my number 1, and Mekhi would be my number 2. Ironically enough, Carnell Tate actually goes early. I think just kind of body type and what the team needs more than anything. Mekhi Lemon, though, to the Jets with Adonai Mitchell and Garrett Wilson, I mean, that would make for a really solid receiving core. All right, Detroit at number 17. They could trade down, but I think we're at the stage of the mock draft where if a team's going to trade up, it's going to be for Ty Simpson. And I don't know if a team is really going to trade up for Ty Simpson. I honestly think they're going to wait to see if Pittsburgh takes him. And then if Pittsburgh does not take Ty Simpson, I think that's when you could see one of these teams trade out of round 1 and pick up some capital, and a team trades into round 1 and take Ty Simpson to ensure they get that 5th year. But we'll hold off on that one for now and have the conversation about Simpson at 21. Detroit, though, at 17, I think this is a probable offensive lineman pick here. Ideally, a left tackle. Vivek Ione definitely fits their type, fits the mold. You'd have to kick in somebody to play center, so that's definitely a possibility here. I do like the idea of Caleb Lomu here as well. Just having Penei Sewell stay at right tackle, kicking Lomu to left tackle, which is not kicking. He's been left tackle his whole career. I thought he had a really solid year this past year. I know the numbers are not perfect, but he's still a developing guy. He's only a redshirt sophomore. I'm going Caleb Lomu here. I think they could maximize his potential and make him a really, really good left tackle working opposite of Penei Sewell. I think that would very much help that offensive line out long term and this year as well. All right, Dallas is back up, or not back up. This is their first pick. Remember, they traded back with the Minnesota Vikings. And honestly, with the way the board fell, like even at pick 12, I was not loving a lot of the options for Dallas, because I think Dallas wants to come away with either Styles, Downs, or one of the top corners or one of the top pass rushers. And at 12, none of those options were there. It was doomsday scenario for the Dallas Cowboys. So this is kind of a good way out of it for them. They pick up that extra pick from Minnesota, so they have a little bit more ammunition to work with here. I think there's a couple players right now at top of mind for me. Avion Terrell, to give them a flexible inside-outside corner. I think Emmanuel McNeil-Warren makes that secondary significantly better. I think he is a probable first-round pick. And I also think a potential linebacker / edge rusher like TJ Parker, CJ Allen, Akeem Mesidor all kind of check the boxes for me for what Dallas will be looking for. I think Dallas is going to prioritize secondary. I think with the new defensive coordinator, he's going to want guys that can ball out in the secondary. So I think they're going to go for a more proven product here in Avion Terrell, who didn't have the best year this year, truth be told, but I still thought was really, really solid. And he's been a multiple-year starter. He's been solid his whole career. He can play inside and outside. He's feisty as hell. I do worry a little bit for Dallas about how small he is, pairing that with Deron Bland and a skinnier Savon Ravel. But, I just, none of these corners are big. Like, the only big corner in this class, like Dalen Everett's big. Other than that, Traden Stukes is kind of a big dude, 6'2", 200. Not a big corner class. So we'll take Avion Terrell here for the Dallas Cowboys. 19, Carolina. You could definitely talk me into Peter Woods. Peter Woods with Derek Brown would be sweet. But I think they have a big time need at linebacker and pass rusher. And there's not a pure pass rusher that just is kind of calling my name right now. So we're going to take CJ Allen here. I think Akeem Mesidor is definitely in play, but I think with his age and where Carolina is, they're still a few years away. So let's take CJ Allen right here for the Panthers. A few years away from contending for a title, I should say. Dallas is up again at 20. And, we talked about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren earlier. If you want to retool this secondary, obviously you still have Malik Hooker. You're probably moving off of Donovan Wilson. You have Avion Terrell, Savon Ravel, and Deron Bland. You have Malik Hooker. You need kind of that box safety, and that's exactly what Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is, who, man, if you see Nicky Monwari play, if you watch how Kyle Hamilton plays, that is the exact prototype of Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, and Dallas could be another one of these teams that takes him. Not to mention, Dallas's new defensive coordinator worked with Cooper DeJean, that bigger, more physical, can play safety, could play outside, could play inside. I think that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do Emmanuel McNeil-Warren for the Cowboys and just completely retool that secondary for Dallas. And again, they have additional third-round pick to maybe go for a pass rusher or trade into like round 2 because they have extra ammunition now. 21, we have to have the conversation with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think Rodgers is going to return, so that begs the question, do you go with Will Howard or do you go with Ty Simpson? I have been pretty consistent on here saying that they should stick with Will Howard for the year, see how he does. If he sucks, then go into 2027 with a quarterback need in a class that looks to be significantly better than this one. And so because of that, I think that's what I'm going to do. Now, what would Pittsburgh do in this spot? I think they would probably target a receiver, specifically like a KC Concepcion or a Chris Bell. I just think Denzel Boston is a little too similar to DK Metcalf, and so you want to find different body types. Yeah, Denzel might be the best receiver, but it's not like it's a big difference. I think if Chris Bell was healthy, he'd be a first-round lock. 6'2", 220, big, strong. Needs to develop as an overall player, but I think for what Pittsburgh needs, though, KC Concepcion just makes a ton of sense. My only con for him, given his skill set, and he's got a couple cons for sure, but my biggest con, he's got to clean up the drops. The drops are a little frustrating, and that might be a bit concerning for Steelers fans, but I'm going to take KC Concepcion here. I think they're going to rock with Will Howard, try and build an offense around him. They should have some money to work with, so maybe they want to go for a vet at quarterback. They could do it. I don't think Mike McCarthy is going to want Ty Simpson to be his franchise quarterback just because he's typically liked bigger quarterbacks. I know Rodgers is a little bit smaller, but Rodgers also has a freaking cannon of an arm. Pair that up, with Dak Prescott, big arm. Simpson, shorter, not a great arm. I shouldn't say not a great arm, not a big time arm like those guys. Let's go KC Concepcion here. Pair him up with DK Metcalf. I'm gonna make this pick until if this is the pick anytime he's available. Vivek Ione to the LA Chargers just checks so many boxes. I actually kind of feel bad for Chargers fans because that is like the default pick because it's just the perfect fit for them. Like that's literally the one move they should do. All right, 23, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think this is a really good trade up spot for any team that wants to jump the Browns for one of these top receivers, namely Denzel Boston. And, who is a team within this vicinity that badly needs a receiver? The Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers. Both teams should be very interested here. I think the Niners are going to be a bit more patient because they have a couple more holes to fill. They need to continue to get younger while also trying to contend. So I don't think they're going to be too aggressive, specifically in a trade up in the draft. If they're going to be aggressive, it's going to be a trade for like a Max Crosby or a TJ Watt, but we'll wait and see on that one. But I think Buffalo's a team that, look, they don't have a ton of salary cap. They don't have a ton of money. So the best way for them to be aggressive this offseason will be to be aggressive in the draft, move up to get your guy. I know they have done some trade backs in years past, namely the one that sticks out, at least in my head, if I'm remembering correctly, would be the Xavier Worthy trade with the Chiefs, which I guess the Bills actually kind of won that trade in hindsight. With that said, we're going to make a trade here. The Bills are going to move up 3 spots. It's not going to cost them a ton because this is a, back of round 1 move. Eagles still only moved down, 3 spots. The Bills probably told them who they're going to take at that spot. So really it's just 2 picks here that you have to kind of concern yourself with. So it's not going to be a huge pick. I'm thinking like 126 and maybe the Eagles send them back like 151, something along those lines. It's a 3-spot move up. Basically the Eagles be moving back 3 spots and moving up, what would that be, like 20 plus spots on day 3. I think something like this could make a bit of sense here. Let's run this trade in. I don't think it'll cost the Bills a day 2 pick. I just don't think it would. So let's run this trade in. Bills trade up, and they're going to take Denzel Boston to be their, unfortunately, Keon Coleman replacement, which means Keon Coleman might be on the move. So that's unfortunate because there's just been so much buzz around that one.
Folks ain't going to keep being patient with you. Like, yeah, I love cookies. And big dog, you're supposed to be our number 1.
Come on, man.
And you're playing like a bum.
I feel bad for the guy, if I'm being honest with you, but, that's business for you. Cleveland's up at 24. I think this has got to be another offensive lineman here. They got jumped on receivers the past couple picks, so there is no KC Concepcion. I will say, I think Omar Cooper and Chris Bell could very easily see their way into round 1, but honestly, with how the board is, you just got to go best offensive lineman available, in my opinion. And you took your top tackle in Spencer Fano, so now I think you're maybe more so looking as like an interior piece. I think they'll be a little afraid of big, slow-footed. He's not slow-footed, but he's 370 freaking pounds, so he's going to be a little slower. I think they're going to be a little timid of Proctor, given, you know, the Evan Neals of the world, given the Jedrick Wills of the world. So I think they're going to pass on him. I think Monroe's just too much of an unknown and a bit of a project right now. He's very athletic, but he's got to add some strength to him. He's also very tall. I think Emmanuel Pregnon just makes a ton of sense. Like, he is a plug-and-play guard, basically. You draft him, he starts at guard immediately, and I don't know if he's going to be a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro, but that's fine. Spencer Fano, you drafted to be your Pro Bowl offensive tackle. Really, you want Pregnon just to be a consistent, reliable, you know, leader in the interior offensive line. So let's go Pregnon here. And I kind of like that for the Browns. Just stack up on offensive linemen here. And with your second round pick, take one of the top receivers. All right, 25, we got the Buffalo Bills. You know, they could lean pass rusher or they could lean interior defensive line. I think, honestly, I think McDonald is maybe the best player here. I like TJ Parker, but I think they would be looking more so for a pure pass rusher. And I think Parker can definitely get after the quarterback, but he's much more of like, I keep making the comparison, he's more Jared Verse, right, than a go, you know, 10 sack a season type of guy. I think Chicago would be looking for a 10 sack a season guy, which maybe does bring Akeem Mesidor into the conversation here, because I think he is just so nasty and so big and strong. He is 25 or will be 25 soon. So that one is interesting to me. Right now, I'll tell you who I'm thinking of. Peter Woods, Caden McDonald, or Akeem Mesidor. Think right now I'm leaning Caden McDonald here. If you guys watch Ohio State film, which I highly suggest you do, defensive film, because you can see Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Davison Igbinosun, Jermaine Matthews. You can also get to see Caden Curry as well in there. And of course, Caden McDonald. Man, Caden McDonald is just such a force up the middle, just such a dominant run stuffer. And he made the lives of those linebackers so much easier. Like, Styles is not a massive dude in terms of, like, he's 6'5", 243. He's a little wiry for the linebacker position. And so he can kind of struggle at times to get off blocks. Now he's gotten a lot better. He's going to continue to get a lot better. That's why he's a top 15, probably top 10 pick. But if Caden McDonald wasn't there, man, that defensive line, I mean, I'm sure they would have had other guys there too, because it's Ohio State, but Caden McDonald is just such a freak, man. He eats up double teams like it's freaking Lunchables for dinner, dude. All right, 26, the Bills are, or sorry, 26, the Eagles are up after trading with the Bills. And the board, honestly, is the exact same from where they were at 23. Maybe you would have considered Denzel Boston, but I'm assuming they're going to bring back A.J. Brown. I think Kenyon Sadiq's the popular pick here, and I'm not always with that pick because I think edge rusher is a bit of a bigger need for them. I definitely can understand it because if you don't want to pay Dallas Goedert, or even if you do pay Dallas Goedert, I think having a bit more of another receiving threat out there like a Sadiq, who is just a freak of nature athlete, I think checks some boxes. Again, I'm not the highest on Sadiq. That's why he usually falls in my mock drafts. But if the league tells you he's going to be a first-round pick, I'm not going to ignore it. So let's go Kenyon Sadiq here for the Eagles. I also would have considered TJ Parker there, but maybe they'll bring back Jalen Phillips. 27, you got the San Francisco 49ers. A few names right now are sticking out to me. Proctor, Parker, and Akeem Mesidor are all checking some boxes for me. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if San Francisco goes after a Max Crosby or a TJ Watt this offseason. And you got Nick Bosa coming back. I would love to go TJ Parker here. I wonder if maybe there's just too much like Micah Williams to this pick. So let's go on the other side of the offensive line board here and look at Proctor. I think that is there as well. And, you know, if you want to be fun, Chris Bell, man. Chris Bell would make a lot of sense. I think the concerning thing, though, is like this is one of the most injured teams in the NFL, and you're going to take a guy who just tore his ACL. That's a tough sell for me on that one. So I just want to shout out Chris Bell. I think he is a potential first-round caliber guy. But let's take Caden Proctor here. Learn from Trent Williams at tackle. Can be a plug-and-play starter at guard. He's big. He's strong. He gets his hands on you. You're not moving. And he's only 20 years old. So he's just going to continue to get better and better. And learning how to manage his weight. Learning how to play with his size next to Trent Williams. Like, it can make Caden Proctor a really good football player. So let's run that pick in. 28, you got the Texans. And, man, I really want to take Peter Woods off the board here because I think he's a really good talent. But I just cannot afford to not look at this offensive line and how bad it was in the postseason and see there's a couple of names here that I still really like. I think Max Ahina-Chor is going to be a first-round lock. I think he is a first-round lock. This is somebody who's newer to the game of football, and you just saw him got better and better and better. And, man, if you watched him at the Senior Bowl, he was the best player out there on the field. He's your right tackle of the future. You already have Ariante Ursary on left tackle duty. Maybe you move him. You have a ton of variety on that offensive line. I would love to see Max just be your future right tackle, Ursary be your future left tackle. Just two big, strong, physical tackles. And then you just got to worry about the interior offensive line, which you already have like an Ed Ingram there. And you have 2 second-round picks as well, so you can add even more fuel to the fire. I know Monroe Freeling might be the pick here too, but I just think Max Ahinachor is such a high-ceiling guy. And I'll be honest with you, I actually prefer Max over Monroe Freeling. I really do. So I'm taking Max Ahinachor, I believe is how you pronounce it. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. All right, Peter Woods fell a little too far. And while the Rams don't necessarily need Peter Woods, I think with his size, his flexibility, his versatility, he's also only 20 years of age, which is just, he's going to be 21 at the draft. But I just think that with the way the board is, like, that just makes a lot of sense. We already took Jermon McCoy. Maybe you pair him up with like a Cisse or a Keith Abney or even his teammate Colton Hood, who ironically, I don't think they've ever played together, but, they'll get to play in Los Angeles together, I guess. I think I'm taking Peter Woods. I think Los Angeles is just going to continue to go best player available. They traded up and made the move for Jermod. Now they can just kind of afford to go best player. Or is this the Ty Simpson spot? Is this the Ty Simpson spot? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I don't know how Rams fans would feel about that. Okay, Stafford's obviously returning. You got gifted a first-round pick from Atlanta. That first-round pick turned into a potential superstar corner. You feel good about your CB1 of the future. They have a bit of some cap space, too, to make a couple additional moves. Man, does Ty Simpson... I think he would fit really well in Sean McVay's system, and being able to sit behind Stafford for a year. I think people underrate Ty Simpson a bit here in this class. I think he is the second best quarterback in this class, and I do think he's a worthy early day 2 or late day 1 pick. I think he is that level of a quarterback. He's not Kenny Pickett at all. And I think letting him learn behind Stafford, my only concern is like he is just such a different body type from Stafford. Like Stafford is massive, he's thick, paws, big can of an arm, willing to take on contact. Simpson is a little smaller. I think he's probably more like 6'1", but maybe 6'2", 210 pounds. Has a good arm. I wouldn't call it a great arm, can make all the throws in the field. And then you also look at like Jared Goff, big, thicker, solid arm. I don't know, man. I don't know if Ty Simpson would be the pick here. I feel like I got to get Simpson in the first round somewhere, so maybe I can do a trade after this. I think I'm going to, you know what? Oh, Peter Woods or Ty Simpson. Let's take Ty Simpson here. Let's just take Ty Simpson here. Why not? We'll take Ty Simpson. 30, you got the Broncos who, I think the 2 players right now that stand out to me are Peter Woods, specifically if John Franklin Myers does hit the open market, which sounds like is very possible. My other option here would be Jake Galday. I like Anthony Hill. I think he's got superstar/star written all over him. I think he's definitely more a round 2 guy than a round 1. I think Galday has potential to move into round 1. Because I think teams are going to look at what Cincinnati did with him and just kind of like, why'd you do that with him, right? He is a really good football player with great size, excellent run defender, and I do also think he's pretty solid in coverage too. It's just they asked him to be a slot corner at times, which was just really bizarre. Let's take Peter Woods here, though. He's a first-round talent. Let's take Peter Woods. Him with all those other guys just continue to make a strength to strength. I know it's not the sexiest of picks, but he's just the best player available. And John Franklin Myers might be on another team next year, so let's run that through. New England, this is an offensive lineman for sure. And I'm going to go with Blake Miller. Again, I like Monroe Freeling. I think he's a good solid football player. But Blake Miller has 3 years of starting experience at Clemson, has gotten better year in and year out. You're going to kick him over to left tackle and let him compete with Will Campbell to be that starting left tackle, because Will Campbell was bad at the end of the season. And we're back up at 32, and honestly, I'm a little frustrated that Parker and Keldrick Falk did not go in round 1, but sometimes guys will fall. And look, I think Parker and Keldrick are good talents. I think Keldrick's pass rush is going to move him down the board a ton. He's just a bad pass rusher right now. Good and excellent run defender, but pass rusher is just really off. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams, make the comp to Shamar Stewart. We'll see about Michael. Those sort of guys, these big athletic guys that just have no pass rush upside or, very pass rush technique in the case of Shamar Stewart. I think that's kind of what I see with Keldrick. TJ Parker's here. This Seahawks team can honestly just go best player available. I think TJ is a little too similar to DeMarcus Lawrence, but, if they want to plan for life after DeMarcus Lawrence, then sure, but I think that's still a few years away. You're going to have to replace potentially Reek Woolen or Josh Jobe. One of the two are probably out the door. I think they would like Brandon Cisse and his athleticism a ton. But I also think Keith Abbey and his more technical skills might be more of what Mike McDonald is looking for. Colton Hood also is here too, who I think they would like. Ooh, I think I'm actually gonna do Colton Hood, who I think is a little bit underrated on PFF, and I just feel like he is very much a Mike McDonald guy. Just a really confident dude, good technique, good enough athlete. I think Cisse is very raw in coverage right now, specifically in zone coverage, but he is a freaky athlete for sure. But we're going to Colton Hood here for the Seattle Seahawks. But all right, guys, this is our mock draft. Please let me know in the comment section below, what do you agree with, and of course, what do you disagree with this mock draft? And if you enjoyed, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. And I love you guys. Peace.